Om Sadashivasmarambham Shankaracharya-madhyamam Asmadacharya-paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karvavahai Tejasvi Navaditamastu Mavid Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. So I see. So I think a few folks are here. Just wondering if somebody would like to read off the screen so that I can just moderate on the side. If anyone would like to volunteer, if not, I could read. Okay, wonderful, Anirudh. 1 second. So I'm hoping to, since we've laid out a lot of groundwork, I'm hoping that we'll just progress further with the reading material today, and then of course, if there are any questions, we can always address them. But yeah, please, if you'd like to begin from this section.
Okay. What means of knowledge is there for knowing myself? I do know that I exist, and to know this, I do not require a means of knowledge, as we shall see more clearly later. All I need to know is what I am. Am I as I conclude? Am I insecure? What are the reasons for concluding that I am insecure? We will also see all of this more in detail later. But for now, it is enough to know that ignorance is the main reason that I see myself as insecure. Let me know when to pause, or should I just continue?
Yeah, we can continue.
Oh. Ignorance is the main reason for any error, but here the error is typical, and wherever an error is typical, there are other incidental reasons that make it so. Suppose you mistake a rope for some other object. What kind of a mistake do you make? You do not take the rope to be an elephant. Such a mistake is not possible. But you could take the rope to be a snake or any number of other similar looking objects. You cannot, however, mistake it to be something totally dissimilar. Similarly, there is self ignorance leading to certain typical conclusions on the part of every being that I am insecure, unhappy, and so on. There are thus incidental causes for such conclusions as well as the prime cause, ignorance, which we are dealing with here. Knowledge alone can dispel ignorance, and knowledge cannot take place without a means of knowledge. Even knowledge that is picked up accidentally, like the knowledge of penicillin, for example. Knowledge picked up accidentally does not preclude a means of knowledge. In fact, there was a great deal of knowledge leading to the accidental discovery of penicillin, the greatest discovery of the century. I would say, since it has revolutionized the quality of human life. Infections that were once fatal succumbed to this wonder drug, and certain innovative surgeries, such as heart transplants, can now be performed thanks to Alexander Fleming, who stumbled upon this particular knowledge. Stumbling upon serendipity is also a means of knowledge. If a scientist who discovered penicillin had not been qualified, he would not have had the knowledge to question why the strain of bacterium he was culturing had been destroyed by a particular fungus. When he found the bacteria dead, he would have just said, "They died, better luck next time." Instead, he had the capacity to look at the whole situation, and using the proper means of knowledge, experiments, and so on, he concluded that this particular fungus destroys bacteria. Knowledge itself is never stumbled upon. All that is stumbled upon is a particular situation leading to the knowledge. For knowledge to take place, You have to recognize the situation, and this recognition is what is meant by knowledge. But the self can never be stumbled upon. Even if you remove all your thoughts, as some people maintain, which self will you stumble upon? Who is it that is stumbling, and what is it that is being stumbled upon? If you are ignorant of yourself and remove all the thoughts you previously had, what will you be? You will still be ignorant without thoughts. Then, if you conclude that you are enlightened because you have removed all thoughts, the conclusions will be a thoughtless conclusion.
That's a double entendre right there. Um, so, I think this bears some um, discussion. But I guess first I'll see if anyone has questions.
Could I
Yeah,
ask one?
yeah, please go ahead.
So, what I'm reading out and hearing from what Swamiji is saying, that it's not really by chance or luck. There is some destiny and some karmic influence here for you to have even come across the knowledge, like is meant for you, is what I'm gathering from this. That it was part of the design.
Mm. So that is certainly a part of it, but there's one more part which precedes what you're saying also. So the the fundamental point that Pujya Samji is trying to make is that knowledge is nothing but an uncovering of Ishwara's order. Knowledge cannot be created. Knowledge cannot be destroyed. Knowledge simply is. And knowledge, because a long time back, I asked one of my teachers, and like, what is knowledge? What is the nature of knowledge? Because, and frankly, it still perplexes us as a civilization, because we understand the different modes of storage of knowledge. Whether you have floppy disks, or you have Blu-rays, or you have solid state hard drives. You have ways in which you can store knowledge. But what is knowledge itself? And the beauty is that knowledge is not distinct from the object. Knowledge is the same as the very object that one is studying. In fact, knowledge is that which is true to an object. That this is a pen is not different from the knowledge of the pen. It's beautiful. And so, to the extent that one has accurately captured the nature of an object, to that extent, one can say that one has knowledge of that object. And so, if you really go deep, at the Adhyatmic level, we know through the teachings of Vedanta, through the clear teachings of our great acharyas, that whether you say, Satchitatma or Chitatma or Sadatma, it's the same. Satchit are the same. They're not two distinct attributes or qualities. So this is one thing, that knowledge of any object, coming back from the Atma perspective to the world of objects, knowledge of any object is only a discovery of an underlying order which already exists, and we simply stumble upon different pieces of knowledge, and in a secular sense one may call it information, but it is nothing but a manifestation of Ishvara that one has a little bit of a window into. That's all. It's like this grand vista that is the cosmos, and to look into that cosmos we have these five windows, the five senses, and whatever aspects of the cosmos that we are able to perceive, that we refer to as knowledge. Knowledge is the nature of a thing that is known. And so excuse me. So that is the point that Pujya Swamiji is trying to convey. Another point that Swamiji is conveying is that knowledge happens spontaneously. Knowledge occurs spontaneously. It does not require any karma on our part. I don't need to perform any action to recognize this pen for what it is. It is a pen. And all that requires is for the pen to be introduced into my field of vision. If the pen is outside of my field of vision, then I don't see that there is a pen. Once I introduce it back into my field of vision, it is cognized as a pen. And so here, what Swamiji says is that uh, uh, knowledge is not stumbled upon. All that is stumbled upon is a particular situation leading to the knowledge. So that is what I just cited right now. That I don't stumble upon the fact that this is a pen. It is a pen. Is a pen. Is a pen is evident to me. But I stumble upon the fact that if somebody throws the pen across the room and I see it whiz by, then the fact that I see the pen because somebody created the situation where I could see it, that situation is created. So what we create is not knowledge, but rather we create the situation or the circumstances under which knowledge takes place. For instance, in the context of our Vedanta studies or any other subject, but let's take Vedanta for now. The fact that we are studying Vedanta, and when that exposure to the teaching takes place, knowledge takes place concurrently. And let me take a bit of a segue from here. When we talk about knowledge taking place spontaneously, there are certain schools of thought and certain interpretations, even of Vedanta, where they say that, oh, first what you have to do is you have to soak in the information. And then the next step is that now you have to digest it. But that is not what we accept. Based on the teachings of Pujya Swamiji and obviously Adi Shankaracharya ji, right, and even beyond, knowledge takes place the moment the means of knowledge, the object of knowledge and the subject of knowledge are aligned together. So when that alignment happens, knowledge takes place spontaneously. It's a spontaneous occurrence. But then the question is that, okay, if knowledge takes place spontaneously, then why is it that don't I guess I don't feel that I'm abiding in the teaching, even though I'm exposed to it for a number of years? And the reason for that is that the situations or the conditions under which the knowledge takes place spontaneously have not yet occurred. And so, what are those situations or conditions? Those situations or conditions are antakarana shuddhi. When there is sufficient antakarana shuddhi, or you can call it chitta shuddhi, mental purity is not a very good word because it's a bit loaded, and it makes one feel guilty that, oh, I'm not pure enough. But the shuddhi over here is a it's very difficult to explain in English, but the shuddhi, you can say, is a state of the mind. It is certainly a state of the mind, not of the self, but a state of the mind where the mind is receptive enough to soak the teachings. And we are not opposed to it. We are not projecting our own guilts or fantasies or delusions upon the teaching. We are not wondering why the teacher is not giving us special attention because I'm supposed to be a star student. And there are many things that can go wrong even in the guru shishya relationship. And so when the mind has kept all of these projections and doubts at bay, and it is able to live a sort of cohesive lifestyle where you are at peace with yourself, you're at peace with your family, with the world, with your community, and there is not much friction that we create. This mind is it's at ease. And this mind which is at ease, which is a mature emotionally sorted individual, that person you can say has antakarana shuddhi, or that person is like a sadhu in some sense. And when this person with sufficient antakarana shuddhi, not perfect antakarana shuddhi, but sufficient antakarana shuddhi, when that person is exposed to the teaching, the knowledge takes place. So that is the second point, and the third point to Anirudhji's statement also, that yes, all that is dependent upon is a particular situation. Different people are faced with different situations. Different people encounter different situations every single day. Every aspect of their life differs from the aspect of everybody else's life. Life is different. We are all coming with our own variegated sets of punya and papa, and how these punya papa combinations unfold differs for all of us. And so for some people the circumstances are more favorable for knowledge, for other people they are less favorable. And in that sense one can say that there is a sort of predestiny involved, in the sense that there is a prarabdha that leads me towards the teaching, that leads me towards the knowledge, that led Alexander Fleming towards the discovery of penicillin. There was certain prarabdha because the fact that he wanted to dig further was a mental proclivity that the person had, and that mental proclivity was cultivated either in their life as a scientist or earlier on. And so it's a combination of all of these things. And often it's a good point to raise, because often I find that Pujya Swamiji, in some sense, he's a very deep individual. And when you read Pujya Swamiji, you will uncover different layers and different levels at which you can understand the teachings, and that's immensely uh, so it's an immense privilege to be able to study under such a teacher who's multi-dimensional, who's multifaceted in the way that they present the teachings. And it's not like one dimensional view of like, oh, you are that Tatvamasi, go home now. There's a lot of expansion and unfolding that takes place. Now, There's one more thing also over here. Pujya Swamiji is very nicely, in a respectful way, he is also dismissing certain other Vedantic interpretations that have come into vogue in the last 100 years. To be honest, this is like this whole "Who am I" inquiry, right? Ramana Maharshi. The inquiry where, which is not to say that Ramana Maharshi ji was not a Mahatma. Of course, he was, but the people who turned him into a name, who turned him into an object of devotion, who sort of misunderstood the teaching of Vedanta because he was not a prolific teacher. He was a Mahatma, but not a prolific teacher. He did not, deliver pravachans every single day, and he did not write, bhashyas on Jagat Guru's commentary. I'm sorry, sub bhashyas on the bhashyas of Jagat Guru and such. He basically lived like a simple person. Somebody would come to Ramana Maharshi ji, they may ask him, who am I, this and that. And so Ramana Maharshi ji would just, you know, prick them in the right place where they will be inspired to go on a journey of self-inquiry, and maybe they'll go and study diligently under another guru. But he was not a guru in a sustained guru shishya sambad sort of fashion for anybody. And so what happened is that a lot of people went to Ramanaji, and then they created a cult out of him. Not that he created a cult, but after his Mahasamadhi, a lot of people used his name to do Vedanta prachar, and that became, along with Swami Vivekananda's take on Vedanta, this all became sort of Neo Vedanta, Neo Advaita. And so the model goes like this. Okay, and for whoever has joined this is just right now, I just want to mention that what I'm saying right now is incorrect. I'm presenting the incorrect model of Vedanta, which is that I go and I sit in a single corner. I don't go to a guru. I don't look at the Upanishads. I don't look at anything that is there in the tradition. I sit quietly and I ask myself a single question. Simple question. Who am I? Who am I? Then I'll get some answer. Who am I? Who am I? Who am I? Keep asking, keep doing this mental sort of churning. Then after a point, the assumption is that the answer that I will be left with is the right answer. You can't. You cannot stumble upon the Atma, as Pujya Samji says. Knowledge of the self, especially, is never ever stumbled upon. Because just ask one basic question. If I have to do this neti approach, which is also Upanishadic, by the way, it's not just
Yeah.
logical. That neti approach says, okay, I'm not the body. It is relatively straightforward to see that I'm not the body. I don't need Vedanta for that. I'm not the body because tonight I actually ate dosa. I ate dosa chutney. When the food is not me, when that same food reconstitutes itself and becomes part of my cellular system, it becomes part of my body, my tissues, my organs. If the food that I ate is not me, how can the product of that food that I ate, which is basically my body, be me? It can't be. It's just a basic understanding. And that way one can sort of use this neti approach up to a certain level. But then you will find, unfortunately, that as we proceed further with the neti approach, we have dismissed everything that one is not. And this is also assuming that one's logic is extremely sharp and clear. Some people may land up in the wrong place also with this "who am I" approach. But assuming that one is a mature individual, logically sound, is able to, I guess, inquire deeply and not come up with silly answers. Even for such a mature person, what is the last place you can land up? That I am not any of these things. But can you ever stumble upon "who am I"? You can't. Because the person is, it's kind of like I'm trying to look at my own eyes with the help of my eyes. The inquirer is trying to figure out who the inquirer is. And the inquirer can only figure out things which are, objects and not the self. Because I can only objectify objects, I cannot objectify the self. And so ultimately what happens, unfortunately, sadly, I've seen this, I've communicated with a lot of people, it doesn't work because once you go down that trajectory, you're messed up. It's finished. Unless you have a lot of great anugrah and some guru comes and helps out, you can't backtrack from that. What ends up happening is that they become the Vedantic version of nihilists, in the sense that, oh, I am that, they will say, I am that, aham brahmasmi, but without understanding what Brahman is. And Brahman becomes a sort of a negation of sorts. It becomes like the shunya of the Buddhists. Because until one see, Pujya Swamiji, what makes him unique, is not that he created a cult or a teaching of his own. Pujya Swamiji is unique because he was extremely loyal to the bhashyas of Jagat Guru Adi Shankaracharya. Not even a slight deviation, not even the slightest deviation from the teachings of Adi Shankaracharya. But then whatever came later was a deviation. So if you look at Jagat Guru's Nirvana Shatkam, Atma Shatkam, it uses this Mano, Buddhi, Hankar, Chittani Nam. Okay, this seems like a very much like who am I style, because you're negating, I am not this, I am not this, I am not this. But look at the sixth shloka. Aham nirvikalpo nirakara rupa vibhurvyapta sarvata sarvendriyanam sada me samatvam na buddhi na me chidananda rupa shibhum. It always ends with chidananda rupa shivoham shivom. First, it says, you are not this, you are not this, I am not this, I am not this, I am not the son, I am not the father, I am not the guru, I am not the shishya, I am not any of these things. But each and every single shloka ends with Chidananda Rupaha Shivoham Shivoham. That Satchidananda Rupaha that I am is really where the teaching takes place. The negation part is part of the process to deliver the goods. Because first, in order to fill the cup, I need to empty the garbage contents out of it. The stale water, the stale tea, the spoilt milk, I need to empty that out, and then I need to fill it with the right thing. And so this neti neti approach is not the goal of Vedanta, though a lot of people have made neti neti as the goal of Vedanta. Some people say neti neti is the greatest prakriya. Arey bhai, neti neti is emptying everything that I am not, but it's not filling you with what you are. And that's why if you see Pujya Swamiji, he doesn't go too deep into this whole neti neti prakriya and all, right? He keeps it a little focused on who one is. And then by implication, the neti neti also happens. So this is just one approach of Pujya Swamiji. We can proceed to the next if somebody else would like
Uh,
to read.
yes, I have a question, Prashant.
Haji. And please, if
Uh,
you can come on camera, if everyone can come on camera, that'll be wonderful.
Sorry. Okay. Um, you just now said this Ramana Maharshi versus Dayanand, Pujya Swamiji, and
Just one
one
correction.
point.
Sorry, just one correction. I did not say Ramana Maharshi versus. I said
No,
Ramana
no,
Maharshi's
that
legacy, the legacy
yes,
that was left
I
behind
understood.
versus. Yes, yes.
Yeah, I understood. I know. I just said I'm just saying that context is what I'm having a question on. My question is here. Ramana Maharishi, okay, he wasn't purist on the Vedantic literature, but he insisted, or he or his followers, how I see is his what is being told today, is that you meditate. So that is the focus. You meditate. That is all. Is the focus. So you meditate to become a or no, or gain knowledge about yourself. That is one way. And Pujya Swamiji's way is that you study the scriptures, you understand, gain knowledge. This I understand. But my question is, now we gain knowledge, but realizing is something you can do only if you go to that step of meditating, spending time on that meditation, sitting quietly and doing it, that is the practice, right? So we have to do that. What is Pujya Swamiji's comment or advice on that? I mean, as we study Bhagavad
Mhm.
Gita, as we study these scriptures, what is that advice towards practice of meditation? That also can you speak?
No, that's a great question. I think this will take us another easily 15 minutes. So please bear with me on that because I think this requires a lot of unpacking. So, Pujya Swamiji, one thing I would say is that, again, it is going back to Pujya Swamiji was just a medium who beautifully articulated the teachings of the Upanishads. So then the question really goes back to what do the Upanishads actually say? And then if one has to ask, how can we be so certain of what the Upanishads say? Then we have to say that we are certain of Jagadguru Adi Shankaracharya ji's stature as a great Mahatma and as the person who completely, thoroughly understood and explained the teachings of Vedanta. Right? So somewhere we have to say that okay, this person is the pramana. So let us assume that every single person in this group, let's assume, is accepting that the pramana, the means of knowledge for all of us as students of Vedanta, is the Jagat Guru Adi Shankaracharya. Now, Pujya Swamiji unfolds only what Adi Shankaracharya says. So it is not Pujya Swamiji take versus somebody else's take, but it is what Adi Shankaracharya has spoken, Bhagwan Bhashyakara. So now, what Jagadguru has explained in the Bhashyas very clearly is that Jnana eva moksha, and all of these other things that we call supportive limbs, they are only the sadhana, including karma yoga. So there is no such separate measure that is required, so because this is an assumption that first knowledge is gained, but then for knowledge, one to realize that one has to meditate, is actually a wrong assumption, because knowledge takes place directly, and that is why Pujya Swamiji, and I know Shikanji, you might have also, in the previous iteration of the Satsanga, I often mention what is the most important thing for a student of Vedanta: Pramana Buddhi. Because the moment one has the Pramana Buddhi is not actually, as people think, that it is accepting the Shastra as a Pramana. Rather, Pramana, I mean, that is an implication. But the Pramana Buddhi actually means to recognize that when the means of knowledge is operated by a guru, the knowledge that is unfolded takes place spontaneously in the mind of the Shishya. The fact that knowledge takes place spontaneously is the implication of the Pramana Buddhi, that there is nothing that needs to be done for knowledge to take place. So then the question is, why doesn't knowledge take place? And then that answer is also beautifully explained over here. It is because the situation is not ripe for the knowledge to take place. I'll give an example. Suppose there is a seed it's fallen on this barren soil, and it's barren because there's not enough moisture for the seed to germinate. But then after a season of rainfall, suddenly one will see that the sapling has grown and it's become a tree. And so one did not actually need to do anything per se to actually give rise to the sapling from the seed. The sapling was already contained in the seed. All one did was remove the dryness from the environment, or another way you can say is to infuse that environment with moisture. But now, then the question is that for self knowledge, do I need to infuse self knowledge with meditation? And the answer is that not necessarily. What the Shastra says is that one requires Chitta Shuddhi, but nowhere in the Shastra is it exclusive about whether meditation is the means for that Chitta Shuddhi, or whether it is through some form of karma, so through relating to Ishwara, through building a relationship with Ishwara, by recognizing Ishwara and all that there is, by doing the Panchamahayajnas and all of these things. So meditation is one means. It is a karma. It is a special type of karma, and that we call upasana. But it is not a privileged type of karma that meditation is the gatekeeper for that you have to pass the gatekeeper before knowledge takes place. Meditation can happen even before. Meditation can happen even after. Meditation can happen even during, and meditation can be skipped altogether also. Now then the question is meditation useful? Of course, it is certainly useful. One would much rather meditate than watch a movie. But at the same time, meditation is only an uh, uh, an option that is provided to one for the sake of chitta shuddhi and for the sake of chitta ekagrata. So Pujya Swamiji explains that these multiple yogas are not actually there. The word yoga in the context of the Bhagavad Gita, for instance, actually means topic. Sangati. I think maybe Shikanji correct me. I think yoga here, it has one meaning of sangati also, the connection, like topic. Joining something together. So, otherwise, Pujya Swamiji jokes that suppose every single chapter of the Gita, including Dhyana Yoga, was a yoga, then there should be a yoga where everybody is crying because we have Vishad Yoga. So then that would become a sadhana. Let's all cry together because Vishad Yoga is the first chapter of the Gita. But yoga here means topic, and so there are only two yogas actually, and that is what we chant at the end of every Gita chapter. What is it called? Brahma Yoga, Yoganam. I forget what is it, but Yoga Shastra, Shri Krishna Arjuna Samaya. So like Brahma Yoga and Yoga Shastra. So Yoga Shastra refers to Karma Yoga, and Brahma Yoga refers to Jnana Yoga. And so Bhagavan Krishna says, Lokismin Dvividha Nishta Pura Prokta Maya Nagaha Karma Yogina Sankhanam Jnana Yogina Yoginam. No, sorry, Jnana Yogina Sankhanam Karma Yogina Yoginam. And so there are only twofold commitments and not parts. Because now what Swami Vivekananda and others have frankly distorted is that there are multiple parts. What Pujya Swamiji explains, again as per Shankara Bhashya only, is that there are not multiple parts, but there are two committed lifestyles. There is the lifestyle of the Grihastha and there is the lifestyle of the sannyasi. This Grihastha is preoccupied with worldly duties, raising children, raising family, taking care of the livelihood, going to work, all of these things. And so the Grihastha has ample opportunities to engage in Karma Yoga with some time for Jnana Yoga. Whereas the sannyasi has ample opportunities for Jnana Yoga, whereas they have some time for karma also. Maybe they are engaging some seva for their own chitta shuddhi, because there are two types of sannyasis. You have Vidvat sannyasa and another type of sannyasa, I forget, Vividisha sannyasa, I think, yes. And so one sannyasi takes to sannyasa because there is nothing left to accomplish in life. It is all done. It's finished. Finito. The knowledge has been gained. There's nothing left to achieve. And so then sannyasa becomes a natural thing, that what am I going to do going to my workplace, and what am I going to do, raising a family and all. There's nothing left anymore. So sannyasa becomes a natural state. There's another type of sannyasi, and probably a more common type of sannyasi, where they take sannyasa for the pursuit of knowledge, because they have so much nishtha in the teaching, not in that knowledge, not in the firmness of the knowledge, but in the teaching, so much nishtha that they're like, what, this is all that matters to me. This is what I want to do, because I know this is the fast express train to knowledge. Whereas the Grihastha Ashrama is the scenic route. And so that is how so these are two committed lifestyles. But Swamiji explains very clearly that one does not have a choice to say that I want to bypass Karma Yoga because I want to jump straight to Jnana. And one cannot say that I only want to do Karma Yoga, but I don't want Jnana. Because both of these are in some rough karma. And when I say rough karma, it's only rough because, yes, Karma Yoga precedes knowledge to the extent that it is required for Chitta Shuddhi. But both Jnana Yoga and Karma Yoga can happen side by side, step by step, day by day. Every single day can be spent with both Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and practice. But this dhyana, now when we talk about dhyana specifically, dhyana finds itself in the category of Karma Yoga because dhyana itself is a form of action. It is a vichara, right? You say, what is this definition of dhyana? Pujya Swamiji explains, Shaguna Brahma Vishaya Manasa Vyapara. Shaguna Brahma on the, which is Ishwara, Vishaya, on the topic of Ishwara, the mental churning, the modifications of the mind that constantly dwell upon whether it is the name of Ishvara or the form of Ishvara or the sound of Ishvara or the understanding of Ishvara, that constant churning upon Ishvara is what is called dhyana. And that is very much a karma, but it is a specialized aspect of karma, which is what we give the name upasana. But here upasana is also for chitta shuddhi. Now, if one has to create a bifurcation in karma yoga, one can say that there are two types of shuddhis that one really requires. One is this malam, and the other is vikshepa, as I think Swami Paramathanji explains elsewhere also. Pujya Swamiji doesn't get that distinction for a certain reason, which I can explain as well. But just for the sake of this conversation, it's very helpful to break it down. My mala are the bad habits that I have that I need to break. I may have a certain lifestyle pattern that I'm trying to sort out. Say certain things at the wrong time. All of these things can cause anguish to me because I'm accumulating papa karma. There's a second type of mala, that is a jad mala. There's a second type of mala which is really vikshepa. It's a form of projection, which means that I'm living a relatively good life, a decent life, a kind life, a gentle life. I'm not hurting anybody, and I'm studying Vedanta, and I'm going about my day-to-day affairs with some degree of honesty and sincerity. But in spite of me being a decent person, I'm still troubled by my own thoughts. I'm still haunted by visions of the past. I'm still haunted by regrets, by guilt, by some sort of remorse. I feel that I'm missing out. I'm FOMOing. Right? These things are there which are troubling me mentally speaking, and those are vikshepa. And so something like dhyana can help address those vikshepa elements, which are again preventing me from recognizing my nature. But when it really comes to antakarana shuddhi, all is fair. You can do some sort of seva also, and that will also give antakarana shuddhi. Dhyana will give antakarana shuddhi. Relating to ishwara will give antakarana shuddhi. But what is required and what cannot be skipped and what cannot be negotiated, because in karma yoga you can negotiate, you can do a little more, you can do a little less, you can do something different, you can attain chitta shuddhi through different forms. And that is why you can worship Vishnu, you can worship Shiva, you can worship Devi, you can worship Ganesha, you can worship with your limbs, you can worship with your speech, you can worship in your mind, you can do mental worship also, you can do multiple forms of worship, you can do multiple forms of dhyana, you can do multiple forms of upasana, japa, all of these things, because they are all in the service of chitta shuddhi. But what one can't negotiate is how knowledge takes place. Because knowledge will only, and I strictly say this, that knowledge can only take place when it is taught correctly by a teacher who recognizes the teachings, who understands the teachings fully well, who's abiding in those teachings, and who has the gift of communicating these teachings to a ready shishya. That is the only way the knowledge takes place, and there is no negotiation or compromise over there. And that is why this approach of just this who am I, dhyan karke who am I, it can't work, because there's no knowledge that's unfolded. I am the ignorant person. I, the ignorant person, close my eyes. I, the ignorant person, am meditating. I, the ignorant person, am asking myself, who am I? Where will the answer come from? I will wake up and I will still be ignorant. But sometimes what happens, and sadly, is that a person, because I can guarantee this for any of you, if you spend enough time meditating, you'll start feeling funky. Okay, you'll start feeling lightheaded, and you'll start feeling that you're seeing certain visions, and you may even see colors and this and that, and the ground may shake. Different things will happen, but these different things are happening all at the level of the prana and antakarana, and then they are mistaking all of that for some knowledge. Okay, so that is where the problem, the disconnect occurs, and that's why the prakriya, that the legacy of Rama Maharshi, or the legacy of, well, not just a legacy, but even the teachings explicitly of Vivekananda, do not actually support the teachings of Adi Shankaracharya ji. And in fact, there are certain places where Vivekananda has boldly proclaimed that there are certain places where he doesn't agree with Adi Shankaracharya, and not only that, but he's also written somewhere that it is a great regret. I'm paraphrasing. It is a great regret that Shankaracharya ji had a great intellect, but he did not have a great heart like Buddha. And so then he goes all about, praising Buddha. And then somewhere else he talks about how if Jesus were alive today, he would wash his feet with the blood from his heart and things like that. So anyway, unfortunately, many of these acharyas of yore, who have become celebrated figures, who have become so sacrosanct that, it is almost like a, um, you can become an outcast just by critiquing them publicly. Unfortunately, they are the ones who have really, really messed with the teachings of Vedanta for contemporary Hindus. And again, I'm not so bitter about it as much as the fact that, I feel sorry for the people who are exposed to it, because Pujya Swamiji has repeatedly said that it's a lot easier to teach Vedanta to somebody who doesn't carry any of this baggage.
Mhm.
But once you're exposed to the wrong things, it is like deconditioning. Like suppose you're a child and you're exposed to abusive parents, then you have to decondition that child to become a trusting human being again. Like how do you trust people in relationship if somebody's broken your heart or somebody has caused you physical pain? And so since just as we have to decondition people from their emotions, we have to decondition people ourselves from the intellectual conceptual baggage that we carry based on the wrong teachings of individuals who are held in high regard. Pujya Samji said something very beautiful, and this is worth um, incorporating in our attitude towards all of Shastra. What Pujya Samji said is that just because something is written in Sanskrit doesn't make it true. But there's a certain degree of respect that we have for the language, that we think that every single ancient text that is written in Sanskrit is pristine and beyond reproach. But then, Vaisheshikas wrote texts in Sanskrit, the Nyayikas wrote texts in Sanskrit, the Buddhas wrote in Pali, but to some degree, some commentaries were also in Sanskrit. Jainas wrote in Prakrit Bhasha and Sanskrit Bhasha also. But just because somebody has written something in Sanskrit, it sounds very fancy. I have this book, I forget, Tarka Samgraha. It's a Nyaya Shastra. It is a handbook for Nyayikas on, logical arguments and all. And if you open it and you read it, it's like, it's like it's hardcore logic and stuff, and it's not very easy to understand. But the arguments sound very convincing. But then it is opposed to Vedanta. The conclusions of Nyayikas or Sankhyavadins is opposed to Vedanta. So Pujya Swamiji and some of you all who are doing the 3.5 year course, and if you've done the 3 month course that it begins with, Pujya Swamiji explains this around like talk 130 or 140, that all of these other matams that we have come to respect and we have come to revere down the passage of time, they are not so. In fact, they have corrupted the teachings. So Vedanta was always Vedanta, but along the way, just as you have a beautiful, pure, pristine river that is flowing from the Himalayas, it's coming all the way and it's going to the Bay of Bengal. But there's a lot of pollution that gets added into that river. There's a lot of garbage. There's a lot of clothes that are being washed. There's a lot of people who are doing things that they shouldn't in the river. And then where it ends up is very different from the pure water that it started off with. And so the same thing with Vedanta. And as students of teachers who we revere and we respect, part of our duty is not just to allow the flow of the water to proceed, but also to filter that water and remove some of the uh, um, I guess polluted elements from it, so that the next generation can profit from our efforts. And that's why it may appear that, okay, why am I being critical of these past personalities? But it's just because I want to emphasize that not everything that is taught is the same. So I hope, Aparnaji, that gives a comprehensive answer. But
Uh, yes, Ji, I understand. One important thing you mentioned is that dhyana is a karma for chitta shuddhi. Just like other seva, puja, etc., dhyana also can be done for chitta shuddhi. I understand that. So one other question related to that, what you said just now. You said meditation can be done, which is better than watching something else, some unwanted stuff on TV or something. My question uh, is meditation, I mean, while it is for Chitta Shuddhi, meditation and say sitting in this class. This is also like we are gaining knowledge by doing this. We are doing a good karma. This is a good karma. As we are sitting here gaining knowledge, these two are equal. Is it good enough? I mean, my question is because like I have been sitting through classes after classes after classes. Last 4 years, Bhagavad Gita, then I studied Narayaniyam, and then I studied something else. If I finish a class, I study something else. So I sit through these. My question is it worthwhile? Is it not worthwhile? Definitely worthwhile. But is it equal to doing meditation? That is my question. Or am I just sitting through classes while I should be doing something else better also? That is where my question is.
oh, this is wonderful. We will spend the rest of the class on this not class but satsanga on this question, because very important. And a lot of people have this question. That's why. Um, there's no better or worse here, because they are two different things. The purpose of studying Vedanta is for only one thing, which is to see that I am to gain sarvatmatvam, that I am the sarvatma, to gain sarvatma buddhi, that I am the self of all. Now, what is the purpose of dhyana? It is chitta shuddhi. So this part we are on the same page about it. But now there is no choice. Rather, the way I would explain it is, one has to figure out where the focus needs to be. I'll be very honest. Okay, there are people in satsanga that I work with, and I don't make a big deal of it, but I think it's relevant over here. Sometimes people will message me. They'll be like, "Okay, I would like to join satsanga. I'd like to study Vedanta and such." And then if I know the person, then I can make a very tailored recommendation. I'm very tailored in my recommendations. I don't give a generic like, oh, everybody has to follow a certain syllabus, because I believe everybody has a different makeup. We all come from different places, and intuitively we don't have the same starting point. But more than half of the times, I would say 60 to 70% of the time, the recommendation I give to people is to do a little bit of journaling, a little bit of self-authoring. I ask people these three questions. Okay, please, because especially if I see that there are certain projections taking place, um, I ask one question: that what are your top 3 to 5 regrets in life? What are the top 3 to 5 pain points in life? And what are the three triggers that, if you are triggered, you cannot stop yourself from reacting to a situation? What are the three triggers that, something that really gets under your nerves, or something that you feel very insecure about? And then, I get long essays, which is the right thing, by the way, but people will write like 15, 20, 25 pages, and then they will feel a sense of relief and a little sense of release. They'll be released from that thing that's capturing them, that's capturing their heart, and then they will be more open to the teachings. I have, at different points in my life, and it may seem that, okay, Prashant understands me. No, I have the same problems everybody else has. My teachers have often told me at different points that take a temporary break from studying Shastra, resolve this issue that you're working through. If you have a relationship issue, back in the day, girlfriend issue, this issue, that issue, if you have a certain issue, they told me work through it. Don't brush it under the carpet, because Vedanta is not a, a, a solution to dealing with real life problems. Vedanta is a solution to deal with the fundamental human problem of insecurity, of smallness, and all, but it is the absolute result. At the relative level, I need to be relatively secure before I can gain absolute security. It's kind of like I need to be relatively wealthy to be able to make a large amount of money in the stock market or in the casino, because I need to have enough money to at least buy chips. If I don't have enough chips on the table, then I can't make even $5. I need at least $1 to start with. So that relative bit of capital, of emotional maturity, of intellectual maturity, of chitta shuddhi, and of composure, if that is not there, then what happens is, it is not that Vedanta doesn't work, but currently the mind is not prepared to soak the teachings. The mind is elsewhere. And even if it attempts to soak the teachings, it will only stay at the surface, it will not percolate within very deeply. Now, that is not to say that people shouldn't come for Vedanta satsanga, or to scare anybody off. Rather, Vedanta exposure repeatedly is not a waste, because what happens is that all of that knowledge that is gained is not lost, but rather it is sitting like those seeds in that barren soil, but the seeds are getting planted. And then what will happen is, as those emotional issues start getting resolved through forms of psychology, or self-help, or whatever else it may be, even talking to a friend and getting a counselor to work with one, then suddenly all that one had studied in the Vedanta satsangas and other things will start dawning upon oneself very spontaneously, because knowledge has actually taken place. But what is happening is that there are pratibandhakas, or obstacles, in the way of that knowledge. And when those obstacles are removed, there is space for the knowledge to take place and to anchor itself in the buddhi. And so it should not be an either or, but rather one should do a very balanced thing. Now, there was, for example, another person who came recently, and then they had a divorce issue, and they had this issue, and custody battles, and a lot of problems, right? And so then at the same time, I can anonymously read my response, because 1 second, because I think this will be helpful, and without giving any personal details out, just the response that I shared as a Shishya of Vedanta. See, what I said is, my offer to help still stands, provided there is receptivity and shraddha in the prescription. And I want to highlight that, as one has experience with, that when visiting a counselor or a therapist, the degree to which one is willing to suspend their judgment and preconceived notion is a degree to which the treatment works. I'm not saying I'm qualified or in a position of power, but to the capacity that I can be of service, it would be inefficient until one is fully receptive. The psychological reasons are clear. There's also a practical reason. When you prescribe medication to a patient, you do so from a place of qualification. If one thinks that 3 pills work, it is an educated opinion. When I ask a doctor, I trust the diagnosis. Thereafter, I receive a prescription, and finally, I subject myself to a treatment. If there is a failure in accepting the diagnosis, the doctor can't even give a prescription, And the disconnect between us is usually at the diagnosis and prescription level. So I am no one to make a diagnosis until it is sought. But if it is sought, and if the diagnosis is made, then I can prescribe the treatment about this is the teaching, but about the teacher. I have preconceived notions about where I am in relationship to the teaching. I have preconceived notions about who I am with relationship to the teacher. I have preconceived notions about my rate of progress and so many other things. And so what happens is that all of these things tend to get in the way of the teaching. And then they become extra baggages that we carry. But the ideal student of Vedanta is one who simply comes as they are, as simple, basic, conscious beings who neither consider themselves too dumb, nor do they consider themselves too smart, nor do they consider themselves too witty, nor they consider themselves too stupid. They are simply there as basic, conscious beings who are allowing the mind to encapsulate the teachings that one is being exposed to. And when that mind that's of that simple conscious being is available, and when the teaching is unfolded, the knowledge takes place. But now suppose I have basic issues of livelihood. Suppose I lost my job last year. There were certain issues I was facing, like my company had a mass layoff, and then again I was on the hunt for a job, and for a couple of weeks I couldn't study Vedanta. I still tried to do satsanga, but I couldn't focus too much on the contemplative part. And that's because you have to take care of the problems first. Then after a period of time, once one has gained a certain composure and a certain ability to deal with these concerns, then Vedanta becomes a very spontaneous thing, that every you bring yourself to the teaching as a simple conscious person. That is what the ideal student is, a simple conscious person, that we are all simple conscious people. And in this respect, we don't identify with our gender, we don't identify with our status, with our power, with our baggage, nothing. Just a conscious person. And what is the nature of a conscious person? That when a conscious person is presented with knowledge, knowledge takes place. I am a basic conscious person. When I see a pen, the pen becomes the kind of solution that we are looking for. Okay, so one more thing is, so then now coming to the trade-off between Vedanta and knowledge. Oh, sorry, Vedanta and Dhyana. There's no trade-off as we see, but there is one distinction, and what Pujya Swamiji emphasizes. Pujya Swamiji says that if you're studying Vedanta, again, assuming a certain level of composure, do Nididhasana. Okay, do Nididhasana. Because sometimes what we do is dhyana is also wonderful, but again, if you're able to do japa, if you're able to do Hari Kirtanam, if you're able to do those things, that is wonderful, that is well and good. There's no problem with that. But if the goal of these things, okay, so for example, Aparnaji, if I were to ask you, why do you remember Ishwara? What would the answer be? Why do you speak Ishwara's glories? Why do you recite the name of Ishwara?
Uh, I don't have an answer to that. I just by habit, by traditionally have been taught that have to do that. That is how I learned it. So
Yes.
I keep doing these pujas or slokams, reciting slokams is all by habit that I've learned. I don't
So
have
there's
an
a
answer
certain
to that question.
comfort that comes out of it, right? There's a certain sense of
Right,
comfort also.
right,
And there's
right.
nothing wrong with that, because you're getting comfort from Ishvara, you're not getting comfort from alcohol. And so there's something very beautiful, and obviously there's so much growth involved. But now suppose you ask that why is it that I wish to recite the names of Ishvara? Then if you see the teachings of the Gita, where Bhagavan talks about the four types of bhaktas, right? He talks about Artha, Arthati, Jignasu, Jnani. Then
Mm,
ultimately, if as students of Vedanta, we know that the Jignasu is the higher bhakta from that perspective, then the Jignasu prays to Ishvara for Ishvara to reveal the Swarupa of Ishvara to the sadhaka. The sadhya is Ishvara, the sadhaka is the jiva. I am the sadhaka, the Ishvara is the sadhya, which is the goal. to reach. And then there's a sadhana, which connects me to my goal. Sadhana connects sadhya to sadhaka.
mm,
But now, the greatest sadhana is where the sadhya, what is the closest you can become to Ishvara? Can I go 1 inch close and stand next to a murti? No. Can I recite the mantras of Ishvara all day and say that I'm very close to Ishvara? No, because there will be a time when I go to sleep also. The closest that one can be to Ishvara is the greatest bhakti, you would agree?
yes,
Then the closest one can get to somebody is by being non different from that entity. To say that I am close to Ishvara is still in the world of Dvaitam. But to say
right,
that Ishvara and I, our Swarupa is the same, there is no greater bhakti here. It is the highest of bhakti. And so to contemplate upon Ishvara's Swarupa converts dhyana into nididhasanan. And nididhasanan is certainly it is superior to dhyana. Because even Bhagavan Krishna says in the Gita that the jignasu is at a level higher than the one who goes to Ishvara, hey Ishvara, give me a job. Hey Ishvara, get me married. Hey Ishvara, I want a child. Hey Ishvara, get my child married. Right? Now Bhagavan, now I want a grandchild. No Bhagavan, now get my grandchild married. It will never end. But the jignasu says, Bhagavan, you have given me a lot in life. I am satisfied with my life as it is. Now I want to know who you are. And by virtue of knowing who you are, I will also know who I am because we are not different. So the Jignasu now inquires into Ishvara Swarupa. Because the Jignasu is that Bhagavan, I've asked you like a child asks the parents for toys, I've asked you for things my whole life, and now I'm ready to take the next step forward. And if you see, then that dhyana that you do, which is now Nididhasana, is not any different from Vedanta. But if one does Nididhasana without studying Vedanta, then we end up in that who am I camp, or we end up in the Vivekananda camp or any other camp. We end up in camps and we move away from the teachings. Teachings and to contemplate upon them. So, for example, Puja Sabji says that one can focus, not focus, but rather contemplate upon one's these Swarupa Lakshanas, Asangoham, right? Asangoham, Purnoham, Brahmosmi, Brahmasmi, those kinds of things. You contemplate upon it, but know what those words mean. Shivoham, Chidananda Rupaham, that way. So this is all Ishvara only, na? Shiva is Ishvara, Shivoham. Vishnu is also Ishvara. What is the Swarup of Narayana is the same as the Swarup of Nara. Nara, Narayana, no distinction. Wave, ocean, no distinction. Water. So that therefore you will see that now the question that okay, do I do dhyana or do I do Vedanta? It goes away because they are both collapsed into one category of Nididhasana. Okay. And we can discuss this. I'll connect with you separately. Also, we can get a bit more customized into how to proceed. Tarun,
okay,
I think
thank
you
you.
have.
Yeah, I just want to understand a bit more on this. What this Nididhyasan means? Is it ritualistic puja or what exactly Nididhyasan mean?
Nididhasanan is that, see, today I study something in Shastra, I listen to something in Shastra. After I do that, I'm trying to contemplate upon it. Shravanam is mukhya. Shravanam is um, the main thing. I forget the Sanskrit word, but Shravanam is mukhya and Nidhasanan and Mananam and Nidhasanan are gauna. They are supportive of Shravanam. The primary sadhana of a sadhaka, of a shishya of Vedanta is actually Shravanam.
Hmm.
Sometimes a person who has a lot of dhyana inclination says that the most primary thing is actually Nidhasanan, which is it is not. It all ends in Shravanam, but Nidhasanan is more of a support that it deepens whatever one has accumulated in Shravanam. I'll give an example of what I mean by that. See, Pujya Swamiji says that so okay, suppose you go, not Pujya Swamiji, this is what I'm explaining. I'll come to Pujya Swamiji. Suppose you've attended one pravachan of Swamiji. Take an example. And Swamiji says that okay, this wave, water, prakriya, he'll explain it. You see that you are not the wave, you are the water. Okay, you understood that. Clay pot, you're not the pot, you're the clay. You understood the prakriya. And now that Vedanta is understood, but in a single pravachan, is it enough for jnana to take place? Single pravachan. It's not. For most of us, it's not. For some Uttama Adhikari, even 5 minutes of Vedanta is enough for knowledge. Okay, 5 minutes also is enough. Even one single statement, Tattvamasi, is enough. If you one is that is Jada Bharat level or Uttama Adhikari level. But for us, we need repeated Shravana. But what happens in repeated Shravana is very interesting. When I first listen to something, and I know I've had this experience, I know everybody will have this experience. First few times, first few days, first few weeks of exposure to Vedanta, the mind is very busy trying to understand and build connections. It's trying to figure things out. It's trying to figure out the terminology. It's trying to figure out the ideas. It's trying to figure out the connections. It takes a little effort, like anytime you're exposed to a new subject. Okay, so that figuring out process to be able to answer all the inherent fallacies that we create and the doubts that we entertain, or to all of that again, it is part of the process, and then that is this mananam phase. But then what happens is, as I repeat Shravana, every time Pujya Swamiji explains something, I don't have to think twice about what he's trying to say because I understand. I already understood it. Let's put it that way. I already understood it. So the next time I listen to the same thing, while listening, my mind is only listening, not comprehending. The comprehension has happened. Understanding is tight. Next time the listening takes place, I am a simple conscious being exposed to the teaching, merely a listener, and the teaching takes place. And that is Nidhasana. So repeated Shravanam itself becomes Nidhasana. And that's why Pujya Swamiji says that the most important thing, most important thing, I cannot stress enough, I'll put 100 more most after this, is Shravanam. To listen to the Guru teaching Vedanta, proper Guru, not any wannabe Guru, proper Guru. To listen to the teachings of a Guru is the greatest sadhana. Even Swami Divya Chaitanya ji, one of my teachers, has also mentioned this separately. He says कि सबसे बड़ा जो जो साधना होता है वो है स्वाध्याय, to listen to the teachings. Swadhyay of and Shravanam is the greatest sadhana. And then what happens is, as one does Shravanam, it cannot be dry. See, so this maybe Aparnaji and others also may have seen this, and I have also seen this in my life, that when we start with Vedanta, we again create that bifurcation. Vedanta time, world time. Vedanta time, world time. Vedanta time, world time. But then that world time must also be time that one spends contemplating as one walks into the world. Next, when one is watching a movie, use it, enjoy it to contemplate upon Vedanta. When we speak to our beloved, contemplate upon Vedanta while speaking, while washing dishes, contemplate upon Vedanta. Now, sometimes when one is writing like heavy code and things like that on the computer, it's not easy to contemplate then, and one cannot because the mind is so busy processing that contemplating part doesn't happen. But let's be honest, 90% of our day, 80% at least, is spent in manual tasks. We get up, we go use the restroom, we go for a change of clothes, we go cook some food, we go eat some food, we go talk to somebody, we go out for a walk, we drive to work, we eat lunch at work. There are only few times when one requires 100% attention that I can't contemplate. But if every single other moment is only spent in appreciation of the glory of Ishwara, one glorifies Ishwara, that this is such a beautiful, these walls around me, it is all nothing but Ishvara, it is all Ishvara Vibhuti, it is all Swarupa. The fact that I'm discussing Vedanta and we are all studying this together is also just a Vibhuti of Ishvara. It is all a Vibhuti. This is Vibhuti Yoga. It's not a special yoga, but it is a chapter where Bhagavan talks about this in the Gita, that all that there is there, the most exalted of everything is I, the self, the Atma, or Ishvara for that matter. And so then, anytime you look at anything in the world, this nail cutter, Bhagavan, just a manifestation. Name and form, Nam, Rupa, what is it? Substantive, Brahman, Ishvara. Jewelry everywhere. What is the weight of the jewelry? Does jewelry have weight? No. Gold has weight. The jewelry is just a Nama Rupa. So then this way, when one brings Vedanta into day-to-day life, then and only then I will say, can one find that the teaching is actually paying dividends, hardcore dividends, and not just like in pennies, but enough to make one a Vedanta millionaire because one is so rich and wealthy with the teachings. So, this is the greatest tip I can give, that, just as we lead our life, and I'll close on this, that, just as we lead our life, let us appreciate the vision of the self, the vision of Ishvara in all that we do. Then one will find that, do I need to do a separate dhyana? Do I need to do a separate activity when all that I'm engaging is Ishvara? And those occasions will fall away because whole life becomes a nidhasana. So another tip where my guru also gave me, I said, Swamiji, kya karna chahiye mujhe? As your shishya, as a sadhak, I asked this like 4 or 5 years ago. So he said, satatam chintanam karo. Always keep contemplating. Don't ever turn Vedanta into an activity that is apart from a secular activity. Ishwara is everything. Ishwara is everything. This should be a tattoo that we should have. Ishwara is your problems. Ishwara is your relationships. Ishwara is your wealth. Ishwara is your weaknesses, your strengths, everything. Then what happens is that there is only this vibhuti. And this body, mind, sense complex is also vibhuti of Ishwara. My ability to think is a vibhuti of Ishwara. My ability to learn is also vibhuti of Ishwara. The fact that I have problems and I'm sucking it up today because life is so hard, the place where the problems are manifest in my buddhi, in my mana, is also vibhuti of Ishvara, because Ishvara is present even here in this antakarana as the psychological order. Ishvara is present out in nature as the ecological order. Ishvara is present in my family as the family unit, as the sambandha between family members. Ishvara is present in this community as the communal order, as a social order, as a social fabric. Ishvara is present in the cosmos as the physical order, as gravity that's stringing all the bodies together. It's Ishvara. As the sunlight that's giving light and warming up this planet, it's also Ishvara. As the moon, which is so cooling, is also Ishvara. As the stars which dictate our astrological charts, that's also Ishvara. That I am born on a certain day, a certain time, that I have a certain, panoti on my head is also Ishvara. That I'm stricken with lung cancer or this or whatever is also Ishvara, because it's all part of the order. So what Pujya Swamiji explains is that when you Ishvarize everything, the problems become smaller than the solution. Because you become bigger than the problem. The problem will still be the problem, but we become bigger. So therefore, that is the thing that a student of Vedanta has to focus on, not on a separate set of activities that supposedly digest the teachings, because the teachings are everywhere you look. If the vision is right, the teachings are everywhere. That vision and that habit has to be cultivated. The habit to find Bhagwan in everything. That's Vedanta. That is Vedanta in practice. Yeah, so I think this is a good lengthy satsang. If anyone has closing questions, I'm happy to take. But folks who want to drop off, please feel free. I'm happy to stay back if anyone wants to connect.
Thank you, Prasantji. Very, very glad that you answered my question. Nididhyasana is better than sitting for dhyana. I got it. Thank you. I will connect with you also.
Let's connect separately and we'll customize things.
Yes, thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, great. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva
Shashyate.